Hi y'all. In the last video, I was awkwardly unable to finish question 6 before it cut me off. So I'm going to quickly finish reading question 6. And if you already answered that, then maybe go back to it just to make sure that your answer is correct, okay? So in paragraph 9, which we already revisited in the last video, the description of the kitchen serves to F. Emphasize the unpleasantness of Jimmy's living conditions. G. Reveal Jimmy's strong emotional attachment to the cabin. H. Show that Jimmy feels lonely in this remote setting. J. Imply that Jimmy hopes his circumstances are improving. Go ahead and pause this video, answer question 6 in Illuminate, and come back. Okay guys, so now that we have finished finally with that first reading and its questions, we are starting on the second reading. A reminder to please have the Learner's Dictionary open so that you can look up any words that you don't know as I am reading, okay? We're gonna get started. So this is from Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I am technically 15 days older than the Pacific Crest Trail. I was born in 1968 on September 17th, and the trail was officially designated by an act of Congress on October 2nd of that same year. The trail existed in various forms long before that, sections of it having been forged and pieced together since the 1930s, when a band of hikers and wilderness enthusiasts first took interest in creating a Mexico to Canada trail. But it wasn't until 1968 that the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail, was designated, and not until 1993 that it was complete. It was officially dedicated almost exactly 2 years before I woke up that first morning among the Joshua trees that had stabbed me. The trail didn't feel 2 years old to me. It didn't even feel like it was about my age. It felt ancient, knowing, utterly and profoundly indifferent to me. A quick reminder, after we finish paragraph 1, if there are any words you didn't know, go ahead and pause, type them in this box, and search them, and then come back to the video and keep listening. All right, paragraph 2. I woke at dawn, but couldn't bring myself to so much as sit up for an hour, lingering instead in my sleeping bag while reading my guidebook, still drowsy, though I'd slept for 12 hours, or at least I'd been reclining that long. The wind had awakened me repeatedly throughout the night, smacking against my tent in great bursts, sometimes hard enough so the walls whipped up against my head. It died down a few hours before dawn, but then it was something else that woke me. The silence, the irrefutable proof that I was out here in the great alone. I crawled out of my tent and stood slowly, my muscles stiff from yesterday's hike, my bare feet tender on the rocky dirt. I still wasn't hungry, but I forced myself to eat breakfast, scooping 2 spoonfuls of a powdered soy substance called Better Than Milk into one of my pots and stirring water into it before adding granola. It didn't taste better than milk to me, or worse. It didn't taste like anything. I might as well have been eating grass. My taste buds had seemingly gone numb. I continued to press the spoon into my mouth anyway. I'd need the nutrition for the long day ahead. I drank the last of the water in my bottles and awkwardly refilled them from my dromedary bag, which flopped heavily in my hands. According to the Pacific Crest Trail Volume 1, California, I was 13 miles away from my first water source, Golden Oak Springs, which in spite of yesterday's poor showing, I expected to reach by day's end. I loaded my pack the way I had the day before in the motel, cramming and wedging things in until nothing more would fit, then attaching the rest of bungee cords to the outside. It took me an hour to break camp and set off. Almost immediately, I stepped over a small pile of scat on the trail, a few feet from where I'd been sleeping. It was black as tar. A coyote, I hoped. Or was it a mountain lion? I searched the dirt for tracks, but saw none. I scanned the landscape, ready to see a large feline face among the sagebrush and rocks. I began to walk, feeling experienced in a way I hadn't the day before, less cautious with each step in spite of the scat, stronger beneath my pack. That strength crumbled within 15 minutes as I ascended and then ascended some more, pushing into the Rocky Mountains, walking switchback after switchback. My pack's frame creaked behind me with each step, straining from the weight. The muscles of my upper back and shoulders were bound in tense, hot knots. Every so often, I stopped and bent over to brace my hands against my knees and shift the pack's weight off my shoulders for a moment of relief before staggering on. By noon, I was up over 6,000 feet, and the air had cooled, the sun suddenly disappearing behind clouds. Yesterday, it had been hot in the desert, but now I shivered as I ate my lunch of a protein bar and dried apricots, my sweat-drenched t-shirt growing cold on my back. I dug the fleece jacket out of my clothing bag and put it on. Afterwards, I lay down on my tarp to rest for a few minutes and, without meaning to, fell asleep. I woke to raindrops falling on my face and looked at my watch. I'd slept for nearly 2 hours. I hadn't dreamed of anything, hadn't had any awareness that I'd been sleeping at all, as if instead someone had come up behind me and knocked me unconscious with a rock. When I sat up, I saw that I was engulfed in a cloud, the mist so impenetrable I couldn't see beyond a few feet. I cinched on my pack and continued hiking through the light rain, though my whole body felt as if it were pushing through deep water with each step. I bunched up my t-shirt and shorts to cushion the spot on my hips and back and shoulders that were being rubbed raw by my pack, but that only made it worse. I continued up into the late afternoon and evening, unable to see anything except what was immediately before me. I wasn't thinking of snakes as I'd been the day before. I wasn't thinking, I'm hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail. I wasn't even thinking, what have I gotten myself into? I was only thinking of moving myself forward. My mind was a crystal vase that contained only that one desire. My body was its opposite, a bag of broken glass. Every time I moved, it hurt. I counted my steps to take my mind off the pain, silently ticking the numbers off in my head to 100 before starting over again. The blocks of numbers made the walk slightly more bearable, as if I only had to go to the end of each one. As I ascended, I realized I didn't understand what a mountain was, or even if I was hiking up one mountain or a series of them glommed together. I'd not grown up around mountains. I'd walked on a few, but only on well-trod paths on day hikes. They'd seemed to be nothing more than really big hills, but they were not that. They were, I now realized, layered and complex, inexplicable and analogous to nothing. Each time I reached the place that I thought was the top of the mountain or the series of mountains glommed together, I was wrong. There was still more up to go, even if first there was a tiny slope that went tantalizingly down. So up I went until I reached what really was the top. I knew it was the top because there was snow, not on the ground, but falling from the sky in thin flakes that swirled in mad patterns pushed by the wind. I hadn't expected it to rain in the desert, and I certainly hadn't expected it to snow. As with the mountains, there'd been no deserts where I grew up, and though I'd gone on day hikes in a couple of them, I didn't really understand what deserts were. I'd taken them to be dry, hot, and sandy places full of snakes, scorpions, and cactuses. They were not that. They were that, and also a bunch of other things. They were layered and complex and inexplicable and analogous to nothing. My new existence was beyond analogy, I realized on that second day on the trail. I was in entirely new terrain. All right, y'all, so we're going to skip this next set of questions because you already answered them for the first reading. So we are now on this section. It says, use wild page 5 through 7 to answer questions 7 through 12. Then fill in the answers on your answer document. Okay, number 7. Read the following dictionary entry. Tender. 1. Showing gentleness and concern or sympathy. 2. Sensitivity to pain. 3. Young, immature, and vulnerable. 4. Requiring tact or careful handling. Which definition best matches the use of the word tender in paragraph 3? Well, since all of these definitions are correct definitions of the word tender, we have to go to paragraph 3 to find out which one is right for the word tender in this story. So we're going to paragraph 3. We're going to find the word tender. You might see it before I do. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Where is the word tender? Ah, it's in the first sentence, y'all. My bare feet tender on the rocky dirt. Okay, so now let's go back to our definition. Which of these 4 definitions is the correct one for that version of tender in paragraph 3? Definition 1, 2, 3, or 4. Please pause this video, answer question 7 in Illuminate, and come back. Question 8. In paragraph 8, the author uses glass as a metaphor to show her. All right, y'all, we're going to paragraph 8. We're going to look for glass. Here it is. My mind was a crystal vase that contained only that one desire. My body was its opposite, a bag of broken glass. Every time I moved, it hurt. All right, y'all, so let's go back to question 8. So, the author uses glass as a metaphor to show her F. Intense anger. G. Deep personal regret. H. Vision problems. J. Extreme physical agony. Again, if you don't know what a word means, perhaps agony, you will go to learnersdictionary.com, type that in, and search it. Pause this video, answer question 8 in Illuminate, and come back. Question 9. In paragraph 4, the author's attitude about being near wildlife is, so we need to go back to paragraph 4 to look for her attitude about being near wildlife. Let's see. It says, I stepped over a small pile of scat on the trail. Now that would have been a word to look up for sure. So if you don't know what scat is, you're going to need to know to answer this question. So look up scat on Learner's Dictionary and come back. Okay. Stepped over a small pile of scat a few feet from where I'd been sleeping. It was black as tar. A coyote, I hoped. Or was it a mountain lion? I searched the dirt for tracks but saw none. I scanned the landscape, ready to see a large feline face among the sagebrush and rocks. Okay, so let's go back to that question. The author's attitude about being near wildlife is A. Terrified. B. Pleased. C. Cautious. D. Irritated. Pause this video, answer question 9 in Illuminate, and come back. And question 10. In which quotation does the author use descriptive language to show her unexpected awe? So we're looking for descriptive language. F. I crawled out of my tent and stood slowly, my muscles stiff from yesterday's hike, my bare feet tender on the dirty, rocky dirt. So you're asking yourself, does this show unexpected awe? G. My pack's frame creaked behind me with each step, straining from the weight. The muscles of my upper back and shoulders were bound in tense, hot knots. H. I knew it was the top because there was snow, not on the ground but falling from the sky in thin flakes that swirled in mad patterns pushed by the wind. Or J. By noon, I was up over 6,000 feet, and the air had